Hey guys, tonight we begin with a little trip back in time, to the heart of medieval Europe. When you picture it, what comes to mind? Towering castles with banners snapping in the wind, noble knights clashing in tournaments, or maybe blacksmiths hammering glowing swords under a starry sky. It's the stuff of fairy tales, right? The kind of world where heroes roam and every feast is a candlelit banquet. Well, brace yourself because the truth is a lot less romantic, and a lot more likely to make you gag. The real Middle Ages? You'd be lucky to survive a single day. No memory foam mattresses, no steaming oat milk lattes, just a wool blanket that hasn't seen a wash since the last harvest and smells like it's plotting revenge. Your morning starts with fleas as roommates and a bathroom situation that's basically a bucket and a prayer. So, the question is, could you handle it? Let's find out. Before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. It's always wild to see who's joining us from across the globe. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, and for a split second, you think you're still in your cozy bed, maybe dreaming of knights and dragons. Then reality hits like a sack of moldy turnips. You're not in your apartment. You're in a medieval village, centuries ago, sprawled on a straw mattress that's more insect than bedding. Congratulations, you're alive, in your early 20s, which, in this era, means you're practically teetering on middle age. The air smells like a mix of stale beer, human sweat, and something you desperately hope isn't goat. Spoiler, it's definitely goat. Your bed is a half-rotted pile of hay stuffed inside a sack, crawling with fleas that treat your skin like an all-you-can-eat buffet. No Egyptian cotton sheets, no fluffy pillows, just a wool blanket so grimy it could stand up on its own, weighing as much as a small pony from months of accumulated filth. You blink into the darkness of your one-room wooden hut. No windows, just a dirt floor that's either slick with last night's rain or crusted with something your neighbor's chicken left behind. This is your home, an open-concept nightmare where your family, a couple of scrawny goats, and an army of domestic bugs all share the same address. Privacy. Never heard of it. Your parents, siblings, and a random cousin who just never left are snoring a few feet away. The church bell clangs in the distance, a sound so loud and unforgiving it makes your smartphone alarm seem like a lullaby. That's your cue to get up, whether you like it or not. You try to stretch, but your joints creak like an old gate, and your knees sound like someone's shaking a bag of pebbles. You're barely awake, and your body's already filing a formal complaint. Step out of bed, and your bare feet hit the floor, wet if it rained, crusty if it didn't. Either way, you're now part of the ecosystem. The cold bites at your skin, and the air's so thick with the hut's signature scent, sweat, mold, and livestock, you can practically taste it. Scented candles? Not invented yet. Even if they were, they'd just melt into a sad puddle on your dirt floor. Historians note that most medieval peasants lived in single-room homes like this, cramming humans and animals together for warmth. It wasn't cozy, it was survival. And here's a quirky tidbit. Fleas were so common that scratching was as normal as breathing. You'd see a noble itching their armpit mid-prayer, and no one would blink. Scholars still debate whether peasants felt as deprived as we'd assume, given they had no concept of modern comforts like indoor plumbing or Wi-Fi. But let's be real, waking up here feels like losing a bet with fate. You shuffle toward the door, dodging a sleeping goat and a pile of something you don't want to identify. Your spine's already muttering about workers' comp, and you haven't even started your day. If you're thinking this is the low point, buckle up, it gets worse. Your stomach's growling, but food's a distant dream, and nature's calling with the urgency of a medieval tax collector. The worst part? You're never alone. Those fleas. They're your new best friends. That cousin. Still snoring. And the rats in the corner? They're basically family now. You're not just waking up, you're launching into a survival game where the prize is making it to noon. Let's talk about what's next, because trust me, this hut's fragrant symphony is just the opening act. Want a laugh? Imagine trying to explain self-care to your medieval neighbors. They'd think you're talking about dodging the plague. Or picture your modern morning routine, sipping coffee, scrolling your phone, then swap it for swatting fleas and praying your roof doesn't leak again. Here's another: your mattress isn't just buggy. It's so lumpy you'd swear it's stuffed with last year's regrets. The Middle Ages didn't do comfort. They did endure. You're not even out the door yet, and you're already dreaming of a hot shower. Spoiler: that's not happening. Instead, you're about to face a world where every step is a gamble, and every smell is a personal attack. Your day's just begun, and it's already shaping up to be a masterclass in misery. Welcome to medieval life, where waking up is the easy part. Now, let's pause for a second and think about that hut. It's not just a home, it's a time capsule of suffering. The walls are wood, but they're so thin you can hear your neighbor's cow snoring. The roof, thatched straw, which sounds rustic until it starts dripping on your face. And the floor, oh, the floor, is a dirt masterpiece, sculpted by rain, feet, and the occasional chicken. You're not living in a house, you're squatting in a petri dish. If you're lucky, there's a fire pit in the center, but don't get excited. It's less cozy hearth, and more smoky health hazard. The smoke curls up to the ceiling, or what passes for one, and escapes through a hole that also lets in rain, snow, and the occasional curious bird. You're basically camping indoors, but without the mores or the option to go home. Let's zoom in on that blanket for a second. It's wool, which sounds warm, but it's been through things. Think of it as a medieval sponge, soaking up every spill, sweat stain, and questionable odor since last winter. Washing it. Good luck. You'd need to haul water from a well, build a fire, and wrestle it clean with ashes. Yes, ashes, because soap's a luxury, and you're not royalty. Even then, it's never really clean. It's just less disgusting. And those fleas. They're not just visiting. They've set up a permanent flea market on your body, trading bites for your sanity. You're itching already, aren't you? Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Or you won't. Either way, you're stuck. Here's where it gets real. You're not just waking up to discomfort, you're waking up to a world where everything's a fight. Hunger's lurking, work's waiting, and the church bells reminding you that God's watching, and so's the priest, who'll snitch if you skip mass. You're in your early 20s, but you feel like you've aged a decade overnight. Your neighbors aren't much better off. They're all creaking out of their own bug-infested beds, muttering about the weather or the Lord's latest tax. Community's nice in theory, but when everyone's scratching and smelling like a barnyard, it's less village vibes and more shared suffering. You're all in this together, whether you like it or not. One last thing before we move on. That cousin. The one who never leaves. He's not just lazy. He's probably hiding from the Lord's men after borrowing a chicken. Medieval life's like that. Everyone's got a side hustle, and half of them are illegal. You're not just surviving a bad morning, you're surviving a system designed to keep you down. The fleas, the smells, the creaky joints, they're just the warm-up. Your day's about to get a lot messier, and it starts with a trip outside. Grab your courage, if you've got any left, because you're about to face the medieval equivalent of a porta-potty from hell. You've just crawled out of your flea-ridden straw pile, your bare feet squelching on the hut's questionable floor, and already you're dreaming of a hot shower and a double espresso. Sorry, friend, the Middle Ages don't do pampering. Nature's calling, and it's not whispering politely, it's screaming like a tax collector at dawn. You stumble outside, hoping for a moment of dignity, but brace yourself, the medieval bathroom situation is less spa day and more survival horror. There's no porcelain throne, no fluffy toilet paper, not even a grumpy plunger in the corner. Your bathroom. It's a wooden bucket tucked behind the hut, and it's already full because Uncle Cedric had a rough night with some dodgy turnips. The smell hits you like a biblical plague, a mix of despair and last week's stew. You hold your breath, do what you must, and then, here's the kicker, you toss the contents into the street. That's right, the street. You're supposed to yell, Garde à l'eau, an old French warning for, watch out below, before dumping your bucket from the window. But let's be honest, nobody dodges fast enough. The streets in your village are basically open sewers, a charming cocktail of human waste, animal droppings, and mystery liquids that glisten in the morning light. You're not walking to work, you're wading through humanity's leftovers. If you're lucky enough to live near a town with public latrines, don't get excited. Picture a row of splintery wooden benches over a pit, where you sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, making awkward small talk while trying not to inhale. Ventilation. A myth. Privacy. A cruel joke. Your toilet paper options are straw, leaves, a rag if you're fancy, or, yep, nothing at all. No wonder handshakes haven't caught on yet. If you're thinking castles are any better, think again. The wealthy get garderobes, which sound posh until you realize they're just holes in the wall that drop your waist straight into the moat. Great for convenience, terrible for hygiene, and a security risk. Historians note that attackers sometimes climbed up these waste chutes to infiltrate castles. Imagine sneaking into a fortress through the medieval equivalent of a sewer pipe. Talk about a dirty job. Here's a quirky fact. Some castles positioned garderobes to let waste rain down on besiegers below, turning sanitation into a weapon. Scholars debate whether medieval people were numb to the stench or if it was a constant gripe, but either way, you're gagging just standing there. Back to your bucket. You've done your business, but there's no sink, no soap, no hand sanitizer. Your hands are now part of the problem, and you're just hoping you don't touch your face before lunch. The whole ordeal is cold, public, and deeply humiliating. One wrong step on a slick stone path, and you're face first in the street's river of regret. You're not just relieving yourself, you're starring in a daily ritual of degradation. And this is just the morning. You haven't even eaten yet, but don't get your hopes up. Medieval breakfast is less farm-to-table and more survive the table. For now, you shuffle back to the hut, trying to ignore the smell clinging to you like a bad reputation. Let's zoom in on that street for a second. It's not a road, it's a landfill with ambitions. Mud, manure, and worse form a sticky carpet under your feet, and every rain turns it into a soup you don't want to name. The village dogs are sniffing around, and a pig's rooting through something you're pretending isn't your neighbor's contribution. You'd kill for a pair of rain boots, but you're barefoot, and your toes are already filing for divorce. If you're wondering why everyone's so grumpy, it's because they're all wading through the same mess. The local lord rides by on his horse, splashing you with who knows what, and you're supposed to bow. Gratitude's hard when you're dodging Gardaloo from the window above. Here's a laugh to lighten the mood. Imagine trying to pitch indoor plumbing to a medieval town council. Hear me out, pipes that take the waste away. They'd burn you as a witch for suggesting such nonsense. Or picture your modern bathroom, fluffy towels, scented soap, a toilet that flushes, then swap it for a bucket that's basically a community project. One more, you're wiping with straw, and it's so rough you're wondering if it's punishment for sins you haven't committed yet. The Middle Ages don't do comfort. They do character building, and this bucket's building more character than you can handle. You're already dreaming of a world where fresh doesn't mean slightly less rancid, but that's centuries away. Let's talk about the social side of this nightmare. Going to the latrine isn't just a chore, it's a public event. You're squatting next to strangers, maybe even the local baker, who's complaining about his bunions while you try to focus. Eye contact is a mistake, but silence is weirder, so you mutter something about the weather. It's like a medieval networking event, except the dress code is despair, and the refreshments are non-existent. If you're a woman, it's even worse. Add judgmental stares and whispers about modesty to the mix. Everyone's in on the humiliation, and nobody's pretending it's dignified. You're all just trying to survive the smell and get out without slipping. One last thing before we move on. That bucket. It's not just a health hazard, it's a status symbol. If you've got one, you're doing better than the folks who just use the alley. But it's still a bucket, and it's still full, and you're still the one emptying it. The Middle Ages don't care about your pride. They care about keeping you busy, itchy, and just alive enough to work. You're back in the hut now, stomach growling, but don't get too excited. Breakfast is waiting, and it's about as appetizing as the street you just waded through. Grab your courage, it's time to face the next test. You're back in the hut, still reeling from the bucket fiasco, your feet gritty with whatever you tracked in from the street. Your stomach's growling like it's auditioning for a medieval horror flick, and you're thinking maybe breakfast will be your reward for surviving the morning. Spoiler alert, this is the Middle Ages, where reward is just another word for disappointment. You squat by the smoky fire pit, the air thick with the ghost of last week's stew, and stare into a wooden bowl that looks like it's been through a war. Welcome to your daily dose of pottage, a gloopy, grayish sludge that's less a meal and more a cry for help. It's made of whatever you could scrape together. Grains, maybe some wilted roots, a handful of beans if the harvest didn't fail. This pot's been simmering for days, possibly weeks, with new scraps tossed in like a culinary time capsule. It's not food, it's an edible science experiment gone wrong. On the side, you've got a hunk of bread that could double as a doorstop. This isn't your artisanal sourdough, it's coarse rye or barley, bulked up with sawdust or ground acorns because wheat's for lords, not you. Historians confirm that in lean years, peasants stretched flour with anything they could grind, from bark to desperation. You don't slice this loaf, you wrestle it, your teeth begging for mercy as you gnaw through grit and regret. Want a drink to wash it down? Forget orange juice or a frothy latte. You're chugging weak ale at 6 a.m. Why? Because the water's a parasite party, teeming with bacteria from the stream where your neighbor dumped their bucket. Kids drink ale too, it's low alcohol, high survivability, and the closest thing to safe you're getting. Here's a quirky fact. Pottage pots were rarely cleaned, turning them into a stew ecosystem where flavors merged like a medieval mixtape. Scholars debate whether diets were as monotonous as records suggest or if foraging added variety, but your bowl says monotony's winning. Meat. Cheese. Dream on. Those are for Sundays or saints' feast days, and only if the Lord's feeling generous. Most peasants see meat a few times a year, maybe a scrap of pork if the pig didn't die of mysterious causes. Fresh fruit's a seasonal gamble. Apples or berries might appear in fall, but they rot faster than your hopes. Spices? A pinch of pepper costs more than your monthly wages, and salt's locked away like it's the crown jewels. Your meal tastes like wet burlap sprinkled with sadness, and you're chewing through it while eyeing the rat in the corner that's definitely sampled your pottage. Breakfast doesn't energize you, it just happens to you, a gritty reminder that hunger's better than food poisoning. And yet, you eat, because work's waiting, and you need the strength to not collapse in the fields. Let's zoom in on that pottage for a second. It's not just a meal, it's a lifestyle. The pot sits over the fire, bubbling like a witch's cauldron, and every day you add whatever you've got. Turnips, a sad onion, maybe some weeds you're pretending are herbs. It's the medieval equivalent of a slow cooker, except nobody's posting this recipe on Pinterest. The texture? Somewhere between glue and gravel, with a flavor profile that screams survival. You're scooping it with a wooden spoon that's seen better days, and every bite's a gamble. Will it be a bean or a pebble? You're not eating for pleasure, you're eating to postpone starvation. If you're lucky, the pottage is warm. If not, it's a cold lump that stares back at you, daring you to complain. Here's a laugh to keep you going. Imagine pitching pottage to a modern foodie. It's rustic, sustainable, zero waste. They'd spit it out faster than you can say, gluten-free. Or picture your morning smoothie, kale, banana, almond milk, then swap it for ale that tastes like regret and bread that could break a tooth. One more, you're chewing this bread, and it's so hard you're wondering if it's secretly training you for the next village brawl. The Middle Ages don't do brunch vibes. They do eat or die, and you're learning that lesson one gritty bite at a time. You're already missing your cereal, but there's no Kellogg's here, just a bowl of medieval misery. Let's talk about the social side of this meal. You're not dining alone, oh no. Your family's crowded around the fire, each with their own bowl of sludge. Your cousin, still here, is muttering about the Lord's new tax while picking something unidentifiable from his teeth. Your little sister's staring at her pottage like it personally offended her, and your dad's already on his second mug of ale, because that's how mornings work. There's no table, just the floor, and no chairs, so you're squatting like you're prepping for a peasant CrossFit session. Conversation's minimal, nobody's got the energy for small talk when survival's the main course. You're all just trying to choke down enough calories to make it through the day without fainting in a ditch. One last thing before you finish your meal. That rat in the corner? It's not just a guest, It's irregular. You're pretty sure it's been nibbling your bread stash, but you can't prove it, and you're too tired to care. The fire's spitting smoke in your eyes, the ale's settling like a rock in your stomach, and you're already dreading the work ahead. You're not full, but you're done, because there's nothing else to eat, and the fields aren't going to plow themselves. You set your bowl down, wipe your hands on your tunic, because napkins are for royalty, and brace for the next chapter of your medieval nightmare. It's time to get dressed, and trust me, that's not the upgrade you're hoping for. You've choked down your pottage, the taste of regret still lingering like a bad guest, and now it's time to face the world outside your smoky hut. But first, you've got to get dressed, and let me warn you, medieval fashion isn't the Instagram-worthy aesthetic you're hoping for. You stumble over to your wardrobe, which is just a corner of the hut where your one outfit lives. That's right, one. A single wool tunic or linen shift, worn every day for months, maybe years, until it either disintegrates or becomes a walking fungal colony. It's stiff with grime, stained with everything from pottage splatter to the mystery goo you stepped in yesterday. The smell? Like a compost pile that's been marinating in a pigsty. You're not slipping into fresh athleisure, you're wrestling into a scratchy, sweaty relic that's plotting to chafe you into oblivion. Underwear. Optional, and you're probably not that lucky. If you've got a linen under tunic, congrats, you're practically nobility. Most folks go commando under layers of wool so rough it's like wearing sandpaper. The stitching's a mess, done by someone who thought seam was just a suggestion. Washing this masterpiece? A fantasy. You'd need to haul water from the river, heat it over a fire, scrub it with ashes or lye, because soap's for the rich, and then hang it to dry, which is tough when the sun shows up 3 days a year. Historians note wool was the go-to fabric for its durability, but durable doesn't mean comfortable. Your tunic's a petri dish, and you're the main course. Shoes? If you're fancy, you've got flimsy leather scraps, barely stitched, offering less support than a motivational poster. Most peasants go barefoot, trudging through mud, dung, and sharp rocks that medieval paths call character. Now, let's talk about your new roommates, fleas, lice, and bedbugs. They're not just visiting, they've signed a lease on your body. Everyone's got them, nobles, monks, even the village priest, who's scratching his scalp mid-sermon. Here's a quirky fact. Scratching was so normal that people used wooden spoons to itch in public, and nobody batted an eye. Your skin's a battlefield, raw from bites and rubbing against that wool torture device. Got a rash? Too bad. There's no dermatologist, no hydrocortisone, just a 50-50 shot at scabies. If it doesn't kill you, it'll just tag along for months like an unwanted sidekick. Scholars debate whether lice were seen as a health issue or just a fact of life, but either way, you're itching so much you're considering a career as a back scratcher. You pull on your tunic, every tug a reminder of your poor life choices, and glance at your bare feet. They're already caked with dirt, and you haven't even left the hut. You're not just dressed, you're armored in discomfort, wrapped in a cocoon of itch and despair. The worst part. You're not alone in this misery. Your family's pulling on their own grimy tunics, your cousins muttering about a new flea bite, and the goat in the corners giving you side I like it knows you're stealing its vibe. You're ready to face the day, but ready just means not dead yet. Work's calling, and it's not the kind with a coffee break. Let's zoom in on that tunic for a second. It's not just clothes, it's a biography of your suffering. That stain on the sleeve? Pottage from last week. That rip on the hem? From when you tripped over a pig. The smell's a layered masterpiece, sweat, smoke, and a hint of something you're pretending isn't mold. You'd kill for a washing machine, but the river's your only option, and it's probably dirtier than you are. The wool's so heavy it feels like you're carrying your own regrets, and every step makes it chafe against your skin like a medieval exfoliant. You're not wearing fashion, you're wearing a grudge. Here's a laugh to ease the itch. Imagine pitching your tunic to a modern dry cleaner. Can you get out 6 months of despair and a family of lice? They'd burn it and charge you for emotional damages. Or picture your morning routine, slipping into clean leggings, spritzing perfume, then swap it for a tunic that smells like it's been to war and lost. One more, you're scratching so much you're wondering if fleas are the real lords of this village. The Middle Ages don't do glow-ups. They do itch downs, and you're the poster child. You're already missing your sneakers, but there's no Nike here, just a long walk through a minefield of mud and misery. Let's talk about the social side of this wardrobe disaster. You're not the only one dressed like a walking landfill. Your neighbors are rocking the same look: grimy tunics, bare feet, and a permanent scowl. The village tailor, if you can call him that, is more of a patcher, stitching rags together with the enthusiasm of a man who knows nobody's paying him. If you're a woman, your shift's a bit longer, but just as scratchy, and you're dodging judgmental glares for showing too much ankle. Everyone's itching, everyone's miserable, and nobody's pretending it's glamorous. You're all just trying to survive the day without your clothes staging a full-on rebellion. One last thing before you step outside. Those bed bugs? They're not just in your bed. They're in your tunic, your hair, your dreams. You're scratching as you shuffle toward the door, the fire's smoke stinging your eyes, and the cold's already creeping through your threadbare layers. You're dressed, but you're not ready. Not for the fields, not for the Lord, not for the endless grind that's about to break your back. You take a deep breath, regret it instantly, and brace for the next chapter of your medieval saga. It's time to smile, or at least pretend your teeth don't hate you. You've wrestled into your grimy tunic, scratching at the fleas that are basically your fan club now, and you're about ready to face the world, or at least the muddy disaster that passes for your village. But before you stumble into the fields, there's one more morning ritual to tackle, and it's not a refreshing skincare routine. Your mouth feels like a swamp, and your teeth are screaming for attention. Welcome to medieval dental care, where care is a generous term and dental is a synonym for despair. You don't have a toothbrush, toothpaste, or even a TikTok hack for fresh breath. Some folks chew on twigs or rinse with vinegar, but most, including you, just don't. By your mid-20s, your teeth are a horror show, yellowed, rotting, with cavities that throb like tiny war drums. Your gums are swollen, probably bleeding, and you're one bad apple away from losing a molar. Toothaches are no joke here. They're not just pain, they're a potential death sentence. Without antibiotics, a bad infection can turn into sepsis, and suddenly that cavity's your grim reaper. If it gets unbearable, you're off to the barber surgeon, a guy who cuts hair, pulls teeth, and occasionally amputates limbs, all with the same rusty pliers. No anesthesia, no sterile tools, just a swig of ale and a prayer. You lie back, he yanks, and you scream loud enough to wake the village. Historians confirm barber surgeons were the go-to for dental work, using tools that look like they belong in a torture chamber. Here's a quirky fact. Some medieval folks believed toothaches were caused by toothworms, imaginary critters burrowing in your gums. Scholars debate whether herbal remedies like sage or cloves helped, or if dental care was as absent as it seems, but your throbbing jaw says relief's a fantasy. Breath. Let's just say halitosis is the village mascot. Everyone's got it, so kissing's a gamble, and smiles are rare, partly because nobody wants to show off their dental disaster. You're not just fighting bad breath, you're fighting a mouth that feels like it's staging a revolt. But there's no time to dwell, because the Lord's expecting you in the fields, and slacking means a fine or a whipping. You're a peasant, which means sunrise to sunset labor, no weekends, no sick days. Grab your hoe or sickle, tools so basic they make a butter knife look high-tech, and trudge to the fields. If you're a woman, you're juggling fieldwork with cooking, cleaning, and wrangling kids who are already chugging ale. Work isn't a career, it's a sentence, and you're serving it with a side of tooth pain. Let's zoom in on that mouth for a second. Your teeth aren't just bad, they're a medieval art installation of neglect. The front ones are chipped from gnawing that rock-hard bread, and the back ones are blackening like they're auditioning for a horror flick. Brushing. That's for monks with too much time. You tried rinsing with ale once, but it just made your gums angrier. Every chew's a gamble. Will this bite crack a tooth, or just hurt like hell? You're not smiling for selfies, you're grimacing through life, hoping nobody notices the gap where your premolar used to be. And the pain. It's not a dull ache. It's a pulsing, red-hot reminder that the Middle Ages don't believe in mercy. Here's a laugh to ease the agony. Imagine pitching toothpaste to a medieval peasant. Minty fresh breath for only a day's wages. They'd laugh, then punch you for suggesting they waste money on their mouth. Or picture your morning routine: electric toothbrush, whitening strips, then swap it for a twig and a dream. One more, you're chewing pottage and something crunches. Tooth or pebble? You'll never know, but you're spitting blood either way. The Middle Ages don't do dental checkups. They do dental roulette, and you're losing. You're already missing your dentist, but there's no fluoride here, just a long day of pain and plow. Let's talk about the social side of this dental nightmare. You're not the only one with a mouth like a haunted crypt. Your neighbor's missing half his teeth, your cousin's breath could knock out a horse, and the priest's sermons come with a free whiff of decay. Nobody's judging, because nobody's got it better. You're all just trying to eat without wincing, work without fainting, and live without your jaw betraying you. If you're lucky, you'll make it to 30 with a few teeth left. If not, you're gumming pottage by next harvest. Community's great, but when everyone's breath smells like a bog, it's less village unity and more shared suffering. One last thing before you hit the fields. That toothache. It's not just pain, it's a clock ticking down to trouble. Every throb's a reminder that a bad day here isn't just uncomfortable, it's deadly. You're squinting through smoke, scratching your fleas, and trying to ignore the pulse in your jaw as you grab your tools. The sun's barely up, and you're already dreaming of a world where hygiene isn't a myth. But dreams don't plow fields, and the Lord's men are watching. You take a deep breath, regret it instantly, and step outside. The day's just getting started, and it's about to get a lot sweatier. You're trudging out of the hut, your toothache pulsing like a medieval metronome, your flea-bitten tunic chafing with every step. The fields are waiting, but let's talk about something that's going to make your day even worse: the weather. You're in medieval Europe, where the climate doesn't just inconvenience you, it punishes you. There's no thermostat, no weather app, just Mother Nature swinging between freezing hell and sweaty inferno with no middle ground. It's either winter, where your hut's a drafty icebox, or summer, where it's an oven with a side of flies. Right now, let's say it's winter, because nothing says good morning like frost on your eyelashes and a wind that cuts through your tunic like a debt collector through your savings. Winter's brutal. Your hut's walls are wood, but they're thinner than your patience, with gaps wide enough to let in snow, wind, and the neighbor's gossip. The roof, straw, because shingles are for lords, leaks like it's mocking you. Your fire pit's your only heat source, but firewood's scarce, and cutting it from the Lord's forest could get you hanged. Historians note that stealing firewood was a serious crime in some regions, punishable by death, because lords owned everything, including your right to not freeze. You huddle near the flames, but they're weak, spitting more smoke than heat. Your fingers are stiff, your toes are numb, and frostbite's not a warning, it's a coworker. Your blanket's useless, too heavy with damp to help, and your breath's fogging the air like you're a dragon with no fire left. Sleep's a myth, you're just shivering through the night, praying for dawn. Flip to summer, and it's no better. Your hut traps heat like a medieval sauna, no ventilation, no fans, just you baking in your own sweat. The air's thick with flies, mosquitoes, and a stench that's half human, half barnyard. You're sunburned, because sunscreen's centuries away, and your straw hat, if you've got one, is more holes than shade. Heat stroke's a real risk, especially when you're plowing fields under a sun that feels personal. Your tunic's soaked, chafing your skin into raw patches, and there's no deodorant to save you from smelling like a goat's bad day. Here's a quirky fact: summer's communal sleeping arrangements turned your hut into a sweaty, buggy mosh pit, with everyone tossing and itching together. Scholars debate whether medieval folks adapted to these extremes or just suffered non-stop, but your burning thighs say suffering's the champ. Work doesn't stop, no matter the weather. Winter's frozen mud clings to your bare feet, each step a gamble between slipping and frostbite. Summer's heat makes every swing of the hoe a dizzy spell waiting to happen. Your tools, wooden, blunt, older than your dad, don't care about the temperature. Neither does the Lord, who wants his crops harvested whether it's sleeting or scorching. You're not just fighting the elements, you're fighting a system that sees you as a cog, not a person. Rain's the worst of all. Your hut floods, your clothes stay damp, and mold creeps into everything, including your mood. You're not living, you're enduring, and the sky's your personal bully. Let's zoom in on winter for a second. Picture your hut at night, the fire down to embers, the wind howling like it's auditioning for a ghost story. You're curled up on your straw mattress, but it's damp from a leak you can't fix. Your family's packed in tight, sharing body heat, but it's not enough. The goat's shivering too, and you're half tempted to cuddle it for warmth. Your toes? You can't feel them, and you're praying they're still attached come morning. The cold's not just uncomfortable, it's a thief, stealing your energy, your health, your will to get up. You're not cozy, you're one bad storm away from a permanent nap. Here's a laugh to thaw you out. Imagine pitching central heating to a medieval lord. Warm air through pipes, my liege. He'd have you flogged for witchcraft. Or picture your modern comfort. Fuzzy socks, a space heater, then swap it for a blanket that smells like regret and a fire that's more smoke than flame. One more, you're so cold you're wondering if the fleas are hibernating in your tunic. Spoiler, they're not. The Middle Ages don't do weatherproof. They do weather punished, and you're the punching bag. You're already missing your hoodie, but there's no Gore-Tex here, just a long slog through a world that hates comfort. Let's talk about the social side of this misery. Everyone's in the same boat, shivering or sweating together. Your neighbor's cursing the frost as he limps to the fields, your cousin's whining about his sunburn, and the village kids are playing in the mud like it's not a biohazard. Nobody's got a solution, just complaints, and the priest's sermons about enduring trials aren't helping. If you're a woman, you're hauling water in the cold, your hands cracking like old leather, or cooking in a hut so hot you're half cooked yourself. Community's nice, but when everyone's miserable, it's less, we're in this together, and more, we're all doomed. One last thing before you swing that hoe. The weather's not just a backdrop, it's a character in your medieval nightmare, and it's got a grudge. Every gust, every heat wave, every raindrop's a reminder that you're at nature's mercy, and she's not feeling generous. You're squinting through sleet, scratching your fleas, and trying to ignore the toothache that's now a full-time job. The fields are calling, and they don't care if you're frozen, fried, or soaked. You take a step, your bare foot sinking into icy mud, and brace for the grind. It's time to work, and the sun, or the storm, is watching. You're slogging through the fields, your bare feet caked in mud, your tunic sticking to you like a bad decision, and the weather's doing its best to remind you who's boss. But there's another enemy lurking, one you can't escape no matter how fast you plow: water. Not the clean, filtered stuff you'd guzzle from a bottle today, but the medieval kind, murky, suspect, and often deadlier than a knight's lance. You're thirsty, because swinging a hoe under a spiteful sun or a freezing drizzle will do that to you. Your lips are cracked, your throat's begging for relief, but the stream by the village isn't your friend. It's a bubbling cauldron of trouble, contaminated with human waste, animal carcasses, and whatever the tanner upstream thought was fine to dump. One sip, and you're rolling the dice on dysentery, cholera, or a parasite that'll make your insides audition for a horror show. So, you don't drink water. You drink weak ale, the same stuff you chugged at breakfast, because it's safer, barely. Brewed with boiled water and a touch of alcohol, it's your best bet against the microbial army lurking in every puddle. Kids sip it, grannies guzzle it, and you're knocking it back like it's medieval Gatorade. But it's not refreshing, it's heavy, sour, and sits in your stomach like a grudge. If you're desperate, you might try rainwater from a barrel, but those are breeding grounds for moss, insects, and a funky green film that's probably not a health tonic. Historians confirm waterborne diseases were a leading cause of death, with entire villages wiped out by a bad well. Here's a quirky fact. Some medieval folks believed bathing could wash away your soul, so they avoided water like it was cursed. Scholars debate whether bathing was as rare as stereotypes suggest, but your grimy hands say cleanliness is a pipe dream. Speaking of bathing, let's crush your hopes there too. You're not soaking in a lavender-scented tub after a long day. Bathing's a luxury, and you're no lord. Most peasants go months, years, without a proper wash, because hauling and heating water is a full-time job, and the church says soaking opens your pores to disease. If you're stubborn enough to try, you're dunking in a wooden tub of lukewarm river water, shared with your family, including that cousin who still hasn't left. Soap. Maybe a gritty lump of lye that burns more than it cleans, if you can afford it. Communal bathhouses exist in some towns, but they're scandalous, often shut down by priests who think nudity's a one-way ticket to hell. You're not clean, you're just less filthy, and the effort's barely worth it. Let's zoom in on that stream for a second. It's not a babbling brook from a fairy tale. It's a sluggish brownish mess, carrying the village's sins, sewage, dead fish, and a boot someone lost last spring. You're staring at it, parched, knowing one gulp could be your last. The alternative's a well, but those are often just as bad, tainted by runoff from the latrine pit or the butcher's yard. You're not hydrated, you're surviving, and every drink's a leap of faith. Washing's no better. You might splash your face with barrel water, but it's like polishing a rock, pointless. Your skin's a map of dirt, your hair's a nest, and you're starting to think the fleas like you better this way. Here's a laugh to keep you afloat. Imagine pitching a water purifier to a medieval peasant. Clean water, no worms. They'd think you're a sorcerer and toss you in the stream to prove it. Or picture your morning routine, chugging a cold brew, showering with a rainfall head, then swap it for ale that tastes like regret and a bath that's just a quick dip in disease soup. One more, you're so thirsty you're eyeing the goat's water bucket, and it's looking cleaner than your options. The Middle Ages don't do hydration stations. They do hydration roulette, and you're losing. You're already missing your tap, but there's no Brita here, just a long gulp of gamble. Let's talk about the social side of this watery nightmare. Everyone's in on the struggle. Your neighbor's coughing up something that sounds like it came from the stream, your cousin's swearing he's fine after drinking from the well, and the kids are playing in a puddle you're pretty sure isn't water. Nobody's clean, nobody's hydrated, and nobody's pretending it's fine. If you're a woman, you're hauling water for cooking, which means wrestling heavy buckets through mud while praying you don't spill. Community's great, but when everyone's dodging dysentery, it's less village spirit and more shared paranoia. You're all just trying to stay alive without your stomach staging a full-on rebellion. One last thing before you get back to work. Water's not just a drink, it's a predator, and you're its favorite prey. Every sip, every splash, every hopeful rinse is a risk, and you're running out of luck. You're squinting through the field's dust, scratching your fleas, and trying to ignore the toothache that's now a screaming banshee. The Lord's watching, the crops won't wait, and your throat's begging for something that won't kill you. You take a swig of ale, wince at the taste, and keep plowing. It's time to sweat, and the sun, or the rain, is ready to make it worse. You're still out in the fields, your hoe scraping through dirt that's as stubborn as your toothache, the taste of sour ale lingering like a bad memory. The sun's either roasting you or hiding behind clouds that promise more mud, and you're filthy, thirsty, and itching from fleas that have no respect for personal space. But let's say you're not feeling great. Maybe that ale didn't sit right, or the stream water you risked yesterday is staging a coup in your gut. Welcome to medieval medicine, where treatment is a polite word for torture, and doctor means a guy with a knife and a questionable success rate. You're sick, and in this era, that's not just a bad day, it's a potential curtain call. A fever, a cough, or a festering cut could send you to the grave faster than you can say, plague. The medieval approach to illness is based on the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Feeling off? Your humors are unbalanced, and the fix is as fun as it sounds. Step 1. Bloodletting. You're sent to the barber surgeon, that same charming fellow who yanked your tooth and trimmed your neighbor's beard. He's got a bowl, a blade, or, if he's feeling fancy, leeches, and he's ready to drain you like you're a medieval juice cleanse. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just a rusty knife slicing your arm while you grit your teeth and pray. If you're lucky, you pass out. If not, you're watching your blood fill a bowl, wondering if you're cured or just lighter. Historians confirm the four humors theory dominated medicine, guiding treatments that were more ritual than remedy. Here's a quirky fact. Some cures involved eating live spiders or drinking crushed beetle juice, because why not? Scholars debate whether herbal remedies had any real effect or if it was all placebo and pain, but your dizziness says pain's winning. If bloodletting doesn't fix you, it's time for surgery. And trust me, you'd rather die. No anesthesia, no antiseptics, just a leather strap to bite and a barber with a saw. Need a leg amputated? He's hacking through bone while you scream, and the wound's sewn up with thread that's been in his pocket since last harvest. Infections are guaranteed, and without antibiotics, a nick from a dirty blade can turn into sepsis, which is medieval for game over. Other treatments. Laxatives to purge you, which leave you dehydrated and weaker, or poultices of herbs and dung. Yes, dung, slapped on your wounds. The priest's already hovering, muttering about last rites, because recovery's a long shot. You're not a patient, you're a test subject, and the experiment's failing. Let's zoom in on that barber surgeon's shop. It's a dim, smoky room, reeking of blood and sweat, with tools laid out like a torture museum. There's a chair, more like a restraint, and a table stained with things you don't want to name. The barber's hands are steady but unwashed, and his apron's a canvas of past patience. You're lying there, leeches sucking your arm, while he hums a tune and debates whether to bleed you more or try a trepanation, drilling a hole in your skull to release bad spirits. The cure's worse than the disease, and the bill, payable in grain or labor, means you're broke and bleeding. You're not healing, you're bargaining with death, and he's got the better hand. Here's a laugh to dull the pain. Imagine pitching antibiotics to a medieval healer. Swallow this pill, no leeches needed. He'd burn you for heresy and keep slicing. Or picture your modern sick day, Netflix, chicken soup, a telehealth call. Then swap it for a barber who thinks your fever's caused by too much phlegm and hands you a cup of boiled nettles. One more, you're so desperate for relief you're considering the spider-eating cure, because at least it's not another leech. The Middle Ages don't do, get well soon. They do, get worse fast, and you're the star of the show. You're already missing your pharmacy, but there's no ibuprofen here, just a long scream into the void. Let's talk about the social side of this medical mess. Everyone's got a horror story. Your neighbor's limping from a botched surgery, your cousin swearing by a miracle herb that made him puke for days, and the kids are dodging the priest who's too quick with the holy oil. Nobody trusts the barber, but nobody's got a better option. If you're a woman, you're also brewing herbal teas or tending the sick, because caregiving's your unpaid second job. Community's great, but when everyone's one bad cut from the grave, it's less support group and more shared panic. You're all just trying to survive the cure without bankrupting your family. One last thing before you crawl back to work, or the grave. Sickness isn't just a physical fight, it's a spiritual one. The church says your fever's a punishment for sins, so you're praying between leech sessions, hoping God's in a forgiving mood. You're weak, broke, and terrified, scratching fleas while the barber counts his coins. The fields are still waiting, and the Lord doesn't care if you're coughing up a lung. You swallow a bitter herb, wince at the taste, and drag yourself upright. It's time to face the evening, and dinner's not going to make you feel better. You're dragging yourself back from the fields, your body aching like it's been through a medieval MMA match, your stomach still churning from whatever the barber surgeon called a cure. The sun's dipping low, painting the village in a deceptively pretty glow, but you're too tired to care. Dinner's calling, and after a day of plowing, itching, and dodging death, you're hoping for something to lift your spirits. Spoiler, medieval food's not here to make friends. You shuffle into the hut, the familiar stench of smoke and livestock greeting you like an old enemy. Your family's already gathered around the fire, staring at the same pot of pottage you choked down this morning. Yep, it's still there, simmering like a grudge, now with a few extra weeds tossed in for flavor. Dinner's not a meal, it's a rerun, and the reviews aren't great. This pottage is your nightly ritual. Grains, turnips, maybe a sad onion if you're lucky. It's been cooking so long it's less a stew and more a biography of every vegetable that's ever disappointed you. Meat. That's a fairy tale for feast days, and even then, it's a stringy scrap of mutton that's seen better days. Your bread's the same rock-hard rye from breakfast, possibly nibbled by the rat that's eyeing you from the corner. Historians note that food preservation was limited to salting or smoking, so meat was often fly-covered and shared with vermin. Vegetables are mostly turnips or cabbage, because varieties for lords. Fruit's a gamble, apples rot fast, and berries are a brief summer fling. Dairy. That's a bacteria roulette wheel, with cheese so rancid it could star in a horror flick. Here's a quirky fact. In famine years, some peasants ate clay or grass to stretch bread, which is less farm-to-table and more yard-to-stomach. Scholars debate whether diets were sufficient or chronically deficient, but your growling gut says deficient's the winner. The real danger's not just the taste, it's the health hazard. Bread's often tainted with ergot, a fungus that causes hallucinations, convulsions, or death. One bad loaf, and you're seeing demons or worse, not waking up. Spoiled food's a constant threat. That pork you splurged on might send you sprinting to the bucket with food poisoning. Spices like pepper are for the rich, so your pottage tastes like wet socks and regret. Salt's a luxury, locked away like gold, and herbs are whatever you yanked from the ditch. Poaching game, say, a rabbit, could get you executed, because the Lord owns every squirrel in the forest. Every bite's a risk, and starvation's always lurking, ready to pounce if the harvest fails. You're not eating for joy, you're eating to outrun death, and it's a close race. Let's zoom in on that pottage pot for a second. It's a blackened, crusty cauldron, sitting over the fire like it's judging you. The contents? A grayish sludge, speckled with bits you're hoping are beans and not bugs. You scoop it with a wooden spoon that's older than your dad, and every bite's a texture adventure. Gritty, chewy, occasionally crunchy in ways that make you nervous. The bread's no better. It's so dense you're using it as a spoon, and every chew feels like a personal challenge. You're not dining, you're surviving, and the rat's watching like it knows it's eating better than you. The worst part. This is as good as it gets. There's no dessert, no seconds, just the same bowl of sadness you'll see tomorrow. Here's a laugh to choke down with your meal. Imagine pitching your pottage to a modern chef. It's a bold, zero-waste statement. They'd gag and fire you on the spot. Or picture your evening takeout, pizza, sushi, a burger, then swap it for a bowl of gluey despair that's been simmering since last Tuesday. One more, you're chewing bread so hard you're wondering if it's secretly a brick disguised as food. The Middle Ages don't do culinary arts. They do culinary survival, and you're barely passing the course. You're already missing your fridge, but there's no Whole Foods here, just a long night of hunger and hope. Let's talk about the social side of this edible nightmare. Your family's crowded around the fire, each with their own bowl of sludge. Your cousin's complaining about the lack of meat, your sister's picking out a suspicious lump, and your dad's washing it down with ale, because that's his personality now. There's no table, just the dirt floor, and no chairs, so you're squatting like you're in a medieval yoga class from hell. Nobody's chatting about their day. You're all too busy chewing and praying you don't get sick. If you're a woman, you're also the chef, stirring the pot and rationing scraps while everyone else grumbles. Community's nice, but when every meal's a gamble, it's less family dinner and more group endurance test. One last thing before you try to sleep. Food's not just sustenance, it's a minefield. Every spoonful's a chance at poisoning, every crust a potential trip to the barber surgeon. You're exhausted, itchy, and still hungry, because pottage doesn't fill you, it just delays the inevitable. The fire's dying, the hut's freezing, and the Lord's expecting you back at dawn. You set your bowl down, wipe your hands on your tunic, because napkins are a myth, and brace for the night. It's time to pray, because between the food, the fleas, and the church, something's always watching. You've barely swallowed the last of your pottage, the gritty aftertaste clinging to your teeth like a bad memory, and now you're slumped by the fire, the hut's chill creeping through your threadbare tunic. The day's labor has left you aching, but there's no rest yet. Religion's got you in a chokehold, and it's time to pay up. The church bell's ringing again, because of course it is, summoning you to evening prayers or a sermon you can't skip unless you want a one-way ticket to the priest's naughty list. In medieval Europe, the church isn't just a building, it's the heartbeat of your world, controlling everything from your soul to your schedule. You're in your mid-20s, but life's short. Most folks don't see 40, so every prayer feels like a deposit on your eternal retirement plan. Miss Mass, and you're not just lazy, you're flirting with damnation. You trudge to the village church, a stone hulk that's the only thing not made of mud and misery. Inside, it's cold, dark, and smells like incense and unwashed peasants. The priest's droning about hellfire, his breath as bad as yours, while you kneel on a floor that's basically permafrost. You owe the church a tithe, a tenth of your crops, your firewood, your dignity, even if you're starving. Refuse, and you're risking excommunication, which is medieval for cancelled by God and everyone else. Worse, heresy, or witchcraft accusations are a death sentence. Say the wrong thing, like, maybe the priest's wrong, and you're tied to a stake faster than you can say, Inquisition. Historians note the church controlled law, education, and morality, shaping every aspect of life. Here's a quirky fact: executions sometimes included snack breaks for spectators, because nothing says justice like a picnic by the gallows. Scholars debate whether violence was as rampant as chroniclers claim, but the axe in the square says it's close enough. Violence is everywhere, not just in church threats. The village is a rough place. Fistfights break out over a stolen chicken, and domestic abuse is as common as fleas. Public executions are entertainment, with crowds cheering as thieves or witches swing. Trial by ordeal's a favorite. Dunked in water to prove your innocence, you drown if guilty, float if not, but floating means you're a witch, so you burn instead. It's lose-lose, and the crowd loves it. Life's cheap, and death's cheaper. By your age, you've buried siblings, friends, maybe your own kids. Infant mortality's nearly half, and childbirth's a coin toss from others. Disease, famine, or a bad fall can end you, and funerals are quick. A shallow grave, a prayer, and back to work. You're not living long enough to get wrinkles, and the church is reminding you to stay holy or burn. Let's zoom in on that church for a second. It's not the serene cathedral of your dreams. The walls are damp, the pews are splintery, and the stained glass, if it exists, is so grimy you can't see the saints. The priest's sermon is half Latin, half scolding, and you're nodding along to avoid trouble. Your knees ache from kneeling, your stomach's growling, and you're trying not to scratch your fleas in front of God. The tithe's due tomorrow, and you're eyeing your last sack of grain like it's a family member you're about to betray. Outside, the square's ready for tomorrow's hanging, a poacher who dared snag a rabbit. You're not spiritual, you're surviving, and every amen is a plea to not be next. Here's a laugh to lighten the gloom. Imagine pitching religious freedom to a medieval priest. Let people worship how they want. He'd excommunicate you before you finished the sentence. Or picture your modern Sunday, brunch, Netflix, maybe yoga. Then swap it for a sermon about eternal torture and a tithe that leaves you hungry. One more, you're praying so hard you're wondering if God's taking bribes, because the priest sure is. The Middle Ages don't do live and let live. They do pray or pay, and you're out of both. You're already missing your couch, but there's no Netflix here, just a long night of fear and faith. Let's talk about the social side of this holy horror show. Everyone's in church, because skipping's social suicide. Your neighbor's muttering about the tithe, your cousin's faking piety to dodge the priest's glare, and the kids are fidgeting until a nun smacks them quiet. If you're a woman, you're also dodging whispers about witchcraft, too many herbs in your pottage, and you're a suspect. Community's great, but when everyone's one wrong word from a trial, it's less village harmony, and more village paranoia. You're all just trying to stay alive without the church or the executioner knocking. One last thing before you stumble back to your hut. Religion and violence aren't just parts of life, they're the scaffolding. Every bell, every sermon, every axe swings a reminder that you're not in control. God, the Lord, or the mob is. You're exhausted, hungry, and itching, your knees sore from praying and your heart heavy from burying too many. The fire's dying, the night's cold, and tomorrow's another round of labor and fear. You lie on your straw, fleas biting, and whisper a prayer, not for salvation, but for survival. It's time to sleep, if you can, because the bell's ringing again at dawn. You've survived another day in the medieval muck, your body a creaking monument to fleas, hunger, and the church's unrelenting bells. But let's leave the village behind and leap forward to a different kind of battlefield, the glittering, treacherous court of Russia, centuries ago. You're no longer a peasant, you're Sophie, a teenage girl from a minor German duchy, plucked from obscurity and shipped to a foreign land. You're barely 15, wide-eyed and shivering in a fur-trimmed coat, stepping into a world where ambition is sharper than any sword. Your new name is Catherine, and you're here to marry Grand Duke Peter, the heir to the Russian throne. Spoiler: this isn't a fairy tale romance. It's a high-stakes chess game, and you're a pawn with dreams of becoming a queen. You arrive in a palace that's all gold and intrigue, where every smile hides a dagger. Peter's supposed to be your ticket to power, but he's a disaster, a lanky, immature boy who'd rather play with toy soldiers than rule an empire. He's obsessed with Prussia, not Russia, and his idea of charm is staging mock battles in the bedroom while you're trying to sleep. You're not just married to him, you're trapped in a political cage, watched by a court that's as warm as a Siberian winter. Empress Elizabeth, Peter's aunt, runs the show, and she's a whirlwind of piety and paranoia, ready to crush anyone who steps out of line. You're a foreigner, a nobody, and the court's whispering about your every move. One wrong step, and you're exiled, or worse. So, you get to work. You ditch your German roots, convert to Orthodoxy, and take the name Catherine, burning bridges to your past. You learn Russian until you dream in it, study the country's history, and read Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire, who's all about reason and reform. While Peter's playing dress-up, you're building alliances, charming nobles, and memorizing the court's power map. You're not just surviving, you're scheming, and you're good at it. Fast forward to your 30s, and Peter's now czar, but he's a walking catastrophe, alienating the military, insulting the church, and cozying up to Prussia while Russia groans. The court's had enough, and you see your chance. With a wink and a whisper, you rally the guards, the nobles, and even the church. In a bloodless coup, you seize the throne. Peter's deposed, packed off to a manor, and, oops, dies of hemorrhoidal colic, which is 18th century code for probably murdered. Historians note this coup was remarkably smooth, a rare bloodless power grab in Russia's bloody history. Here's a quirky fact. Peter once held a mock funeral for a dead rat, baffling everyone, including you. Scholars debate whether you ordered his death or just let your allies handle the dirty work, but either way, you're Empress Catherine now, and the crown fits. Let's zoom in on that court for a second. It's a viper's nest, all velvet and venom. The chandeliers glitter, but the air's thick with gossip. Who's sleeping with who, who's plotting against the empress, who forgot to bow low enough. You're navigating a maze of etiquette and betrayal, where a misplaced laugh could land you in a convent. Peter's no help. He's whining about his toy soldiers while you're memorizing names and faces, each one a potential ally or enemy. You're not just a wife, you're a diplomat, a spy, a student, all while wearing a corset that feels like a medieval torture device. The stakes? Power, survival, and a legacy nobody will forget. Here's a laugh to cut the tension. Imagine pitching a dating app to Catherine's court. Swipe right for a czar. You'd be laughed out or locked up. Or picture your modern romance. Coffee dates, texting, then swap it for a marriage arranged by diplomats, with a groom who'd rather play war than kiss you. One more, you're charming nobles, and they're eating it up, but you're wondering if they'd still smile if they knew you're smarter than all of them. This isn't a love story, it's a power grab, and you're rewriting the rules. You're already missing your old life, but there's no going back, just a throne to claim. Let's talk about the social side of this royal mess. The court's a pressure cooker of egos, nobles jockeying for favor, priests sniffing for heresy, and foreign ambassadors watching your every move. You're the outsider, a German girl in a Russian world, but you're winning them over with grit and grace. Peter's alienating everyone, but you're the one they turn to, the one who listens, the one who remembers their names. If you're a woman in this world, the deck's stacked against you, but you're playing it like a master. Community's a myth here. It's a battlefield, and you're the general. One last thing before you wear the crown. This coup isn't just a power move, it's a gamble with your life. Every ally's a potential traitor, every step a risk of execution. You're exhausted, but you're not stopping, because if you fall, you're not just losing a throne, you're losing everything. You ride into St. Petersburg, the guards cheering, and feel the weight of a nation on your shoulders. It's time to rule, and the world's watching. You're Catherine, now Empress of Russia, your crown heavy but your resolve heavier. The court's still buzzing from your coup, whispers of Peter's colic, trailing you like smoke. You're in your 30s, standing in a palace that's all marble and menace, with a nation sprawling from icy Baltic shores to the steppes. Russia's a giant, vast, chaotic, and stuck in a feudal rut. You've read Voltaire, dreamed of enlightened laws, and you're ready to drag this empire into a new era. But ruling's no fairy tale, it's a tightrope over a pit of nobles, serfs, and enemies who'd love to see you fall. You're not just a queen, you're a visionary with a quill, a sword, and a to-do list longer than the Volga. You start with reforms, because ideas are your weapon. You summon a legislative commission, a grand assembly of nobles, merchants, even peasants. Well, sort of, to rewrite Russia's outdated laws. You pen the nakaz, a manifesto inspired by Enlightenment ideals, calling for equality, less torture, and a justice system that doesn't feel like a dice roll. It's bold, but the nobles clutch their privileges like life rafts, and the serfs, who make up most of the population, aren't thrilled about staying chained to the land. You push for education, founding schools and printing books, because an empire of illiterates won't compete with Europe. But you're pragmatic. Serfdom's the glue holding this creaky system together, so you tighten its grip to keep the nobles loyal. It's a bitter compromise, and it stings your ideals. Historians note your wars and reforms added over 200,000 square miles to Russia, making it a superpower. Here's a quirky fact. You bought Voltaire's library to support him financially, turning his books into a monument to your pen palship. Scholars debate whether your reforms were heartfelt or a shiny facade for power, but your quills carving history either way. Then there's war, because empires don't grow on good intentions. You lock eyes with the Ottoman Empire, a southern giant blocking Russia's path to the Black Sea. Your armies clash in muddy fields and dusty plains, and you win big. Crimea's yours, along with ports that open trade routes to the world. You also carve up Poland with Prussia and Austria, erasing it from the map like a bad sketch. It's ruthless, but it adds vast territories to Russia, and you're not here to play nice. You build cities, expand trade, and invite German settlers to farm the empty steppes, turning wilderness into wealth. Your Russia's no longer a backwater, it's a colossus, and you're the architect. Let's zoom in on that palace for a second. It's a gilded cage, all chandeliers and scheming courtiers. You're at your desk, ink staining your fingers, drafting laws while nobles grumble about too much change. The nakaz is your baby, but it's like herding cats. Everyone wants power, nobody wants progress. Outside, soldiers march to war, their boots crunching snow or sinking in mud, while you juggle maps and dispatches. You're not just ruling, you're performing, every gesture watched by a court that's half in awe, half plotting your downfall. You're tired, but sleep's for the weak, and you've got an empire to sculpt. Here's a laugh to ease the weight. Imagine pitching your nakaz to a modern think tank. Equal laws, less flogging. They'd call it utopian and ghost you. Or picture your modern workday, emails, Zoom calls, then swap it for quills, candlelight, and a noble whining about his serfs. One more, you're signing treaties, but you're wondering if the Ottomans would negotiate better if they knew you outsmarted their spies. This isn't a boardroom, it's a battlefield, and you're winning with brains, not just swords. You're already missing the quiet of your old life, but there's no room for nostalgia, just a nation to shape. Let's talk about the social side of this imperial grind. Your court's a circus of egos, nobles flaunting furs, generals boasting victories, and priests muttering about tradition. You're the outsider, a German turned Russian, but you've won their loyalty with charm and steel. The serfs, though, aren't cheering, they're toiling under a yoke you didn't lift. You're a woman in a man's world, rewriting rules while dodging whispers of unnatural ambition. Community's a myth here, it's a chessboard, and you're the queen, moving pieces while watching for checkmate. One last thing before you face the next storm. Ruling's not just power, it's a balancing act. Every law, every war, every school you build is a step toward greatness, or ruin. You're in your 40s now, the empire's growing, but so are the cracks. The serfs are restless, the nobles are greedy, and the wars are bleeding you dry. You sit by a window, the Black Sea on your mind, and brace for the rebellion that's brewing. It's time to lead, and the world's waiting to see if you'll break. You're Catherine, Empress of Russia, in your 40s now, your palace a glittering fortress of power and paranoia. The Black Sea's yours, Poland's a memory, and your reforms are carving your name into history. But empires don't run on ambition alone, and the serfs, millions toiling under noble whips, are starting to crack. You're at a banquet, furs draped over your shoulders, when whispers of rebellion reach you. It's not just grumbling, it's a storm, and it's got a name, Pugachev. You're about to face the biggest test of your reign, and it's not from a foreign army but from your own people. Meanwhile, your personal life's a scandal sheet, with lovers and gossip fueling the court's endless chatter. You're not just ruling, you're juggling fire, and one wrong move could burn it all down. Let's start with the rebellion. Emelian Pugachev, a bearded Cossack with a grudge and a gift for rallying crowds, claims he's Peter III, your conveniently dead husband, back to save Russia. He's got no throne, but he's got charisma, and the serfs are eating it up. They're sick of serfdom, taxes, and nobles who treat them like livestock. Pugachev's promising freedom, land, and revenge, and soon, thousands are marching. Peasants, Cossacks, even some priests, slaughtering nobles and burning estates. Villages fall, and the rebellion spreads like wildfire across the Volga. You're in St. Petersburg, maps spread out, generals sweating, as reports pour in. Pugachev's got an army, and they're chanting his name. You crush it, of course. Your troops are better armed, your strategy sharper. Pugachev's captured, paraded in a cage, and executed, his head a grim warning. You tighten serfdom's screws, abandoning any dreams of freeing them, because stability trumps ideals. Historians call this Russia's largest peasant uprising, a bloody wake-up call. Here's a quirky fact. Pugachev's cage was displayed like a zoo exhibit before his execution, because nothing says control like public humiliation. Scholars debate whether you betrayed your Enlightenment roots by doubling down on serfdom or if pragmatism saved your throne, but the serf's chains say pragmatism won. Now, your personal life, because the court's gossip mill never stops. You take lovers, young officers mostly, rewarding loyalty with titles and estates before politely moving on. It's strategic, sure, but it's also human. You're a woman with power, not a nun. Gregory Potemkin's the standout, a one-eyed, brilliant general who's more than a fling. Some say you secretly married him, co-ruling in all but name. He's your partner in war, reform, and late-night talks, building Potemkin villages to showcase Russia's progress, though the fake village myth is overblown. The court paints you as scandalous, but you see love as a tool, like any treaty or sword. You're not blushing, you're calculating, and it's working. The nobles whisper, the priests clutch their crosses, but nobody dares challenge you, not yet. Let's zoom in on that rebellion for a second. Picture the Volga's banks, smoke rising from torched manors, peasants wielding pitchforks and stolen muskets. Pugachev's on horseback, his beard wild, promising a utopia he can't deliver. You're in your study, candlelight flickering, as dispatches detail the chaos. Your generals want blood, but you want control. Crush the rebels, yes, but don't spark a bigger fire. It's chess, and you're 10 moves ahead, but every victory costs you. The serf's hope dies with Pugachev, and your dreams of reform die a little too. You're not just an empress, you're a firefighter, and the blaze is closer than anyone knows. Here's a laugh to douse the tension. Imagine Pugachev pitching his rebellion on a modern talk show. I'm the real czar, folks. He'd be a meme by lunchtime. Or picture your modern dating life, swiping, ghosting, then swap it for lovers who double as political pawns, with a court betting on who's next. One more, you're writing to Voltaire about reform, but you're wondering if he'd approve of the heads on pikes. This isn't a romance novel, it's a power play, and you're rewriting the script. You're already missing the days when your biggest worry was Peter's toy soldiers, but there's no going back, just a rebellion to crush. Let's talk about the social side of this imperial drama. The court's a powder keg, nobles jealous of your lovers, generals eyeing your throne, and serfs dreaming of Pugachev's promises. You're the center, a woman defying every rule, but every smile hides a knife. Potemkin's your rock, but even he's ambitious, and you're watching him as closely as he watches you. If you're a woman, the stakes are double. Every lover's a scandal, every decision a test. Community's a lie here. It's a snake pit, and you're the charmer. One last thing before you face the aftermath. Pugachev's gone, but the scars remain, serfs chained tighter, nobles emboldened, and your ideals bruised. You're in your study, the fire low, plotting your next move. The empire's stronger, but it's fragile, and the world's watching. You pick up your quill, because ruling's not just about swords, it's about stories, and yours isn't done. It's time to build, and the future's waiting. You're Catherine, Empress of Russia, in your late 50s now. Your hair streaked with gray but your will as sharp as ever. The palace hums with your triumphs. Crimea's secured, Poland's partitioned, and your Hermitage museum's a jewel of European culture. You've pushed smallpox vaccination, built schools, and turned Russia into a colossus. But your legacy's a paradox. Enlightenment ideals glitter in your laws, yet serfdom's chains are tighter than ever. You're penning letters to philosophers, but the serf's groans echo louder. As your reign nears its end, you're not just shaping Russia, you're cementing a story that'll outlive you. Meanwhile, across the world and centuries earlier, in the jungles of Palenque, Mexico, another woman's tale is sealed in a tomb, her legacy hidden until modern hands unearth it. You're both queens, but your worlds couldn't be further apart. Let's stay with you first. You die in your late 60s, struck by a stroke, leaving Russia richer, larger, and more connected to Europe. The Hermitage, stuffed with art you collected, becomes a global treasure. Your smallpox campaign saves countless lives, a quiet victory amid your louder wars. But the serfs, millions bound to the land, curse your name, their freedom a dream you never delivered. Your successors will grapple with your shadow, a mix of brilliance and compromise. Historians see you as a titan, expanding Russia's borders and planting seeds of reform, but they argue over your heart. Were you a true enlightened ruler, or a pragmatist cloaking power in pretty words? Here's a quirky fact. Your love for coffee was so intense you'd grind beans yourself, a rare domestic moment for an empress. Your legacy's a tapestry, golden threads of progress woven with the dark strands of serfdom. Now, shift to Palenque, centuries earlier, in the 7th century. Deep in a Maya city, where pyramids pierce the jungle canopy, a woman's buried in a hidden tomb. She's the Red Queen, named for the cinnabar, red mercury sulfide, dusting her bones, a sacred symbol of blood and rebirth. Her sarcophagus, found in 1994, is tucked in Temple 13, beside the great King Pakal's pyramid. She's laid with jade jewelry, a malachite mask, and offerings of pearls and bone needles, her body aligned east-west for cosmic harmony. No inscriptions name her, possibly deliberate to guard her spirit. Archaeologists guess she's Zakbu Ajah, Pakal's wife, who ruled as regent and diplomat, or maybe his mother, Lady Sak-Kuk, a queen in her own right. Here's a quirky fact. Cinnabar's toxicity was unknown, so its sacred red glow came with a deadly price. Scholars debate her identity, wife or mother. But her tomb's splendor says she was no ordinary woman. Let's zoom in on that tomb for a second. It's a stone chamber, sealed for centuries, the air thick with the jungle's hum. Her skeleton lies on a limestone slab, crimson from cinnabar, surrounded by jade beads that catch the torchlight. The mask, fractured but regal, hints at her power, while the offerings, needles, shells, speak of a life woven into Maya ritual. Outside, Palenque thrives, its glyphs telling of kings and gods, but her name's a whisper, lost to time. You're in your palace, signing decrees, while she's in her eternal dark, both of you shaping worlds that will echo beyond your bones. Here's a laugh to bridge the centuries. Imagine Catherine visiting the Red Queen's tomb. Nice jade, but where's the coffee? She'd be baffled by the jungle and the glyphs. Or picture your modern museum trip, audio guides, climate control, then swap it for a torchlit chamber where every artifact's a sacred puzzle. One more, you're dusting cinnabar on a queen, wondering if it's makeup or magic, while Catherine's dusting sugar on her pastries. These aren't just burials, they're stories, and you're caught in their spell. You're already missing your Wi-Fi, but there's no signal here, just a legacy carved in stone and ink. Let's talk about the social side of these queens' worlds. Your court's a tangle of nobles and spies, each bowing to your power but plotting their own. In Palenque, the Red Queen's city buzzes with priests, warriors and scribes, her status tied to divine blood and cosmic order. You're a woman defying a man's world, rewriting Russia's future. She's a woman wielding sacred authority, her life a thread in the Maya tapestry. Community's a myth for both. Yours is a chessboard, hers a ritual dance, but neither's truly safe. If you're a woman, the stakes are always higher, every crown a target. One last thing before we leave these queens. Their legacies aren't just power, they're mirrors. Catherine's reforms reflect your ambition, the Red Queen's tomb your mystery. You're in your palace, the Red Queen in her jungle grave, both immortal in your own way. But time's moving, and another woman's story waits, a painter in Mexico, centuries later, whose pain will birth a revolution. It's time to step into her world, and the canvas is bleeding. You've left Catherine's glittering palace and the Red Queen's jungle tomb behind, their legacies echoing like distant thunder. Now, you're in Palenque's 7th century Maya world for a moment longer, where the Red Queen's power lingers, before leaping to early 20th century Mexico, where a girl's about to paint her pain into immortality. First, let's linger in Palenque. You're standing amid pyramids draped in mist, the air thick with cedar and sacrifice. The Red Queen, whether Zacbua or Sac Cook, wasn't just a royal, she was a force. Maya women like her could be queens, priestesses, or diplomats, negotiating alliances or leading rituals under starlit skies. Her tomb's east-west alignment ties her to the sun's cycle, a cosmic nod to rebirth. Her jade and cinnabar mark her as divine, but her missing name hints at a deliberate silence, maybe to protect her spirit. Historians note Maya queens like Sac Cook ruled outright, wielding power in a world of glyphs and gods. Here's a quirky fact. Palenque's women played ball games, a sacred sport where losing could mean death. Scholars debate whether Maya women's power matched men's or was more ceremonial, but the Red Queen's tomb screams authority. Now, fast forward to 1907, Coyoacán, Mexico. You're in Casa Azul, a cobalt-walled house buzzing with life. Frida Kahlo's born here, a girl with a German-Hungarian father and a Mexican mother, her world a mix of European precision and indigenous fire. By 6, she's hit with polio, leaving her right leg thinner, her body a battleground she'll fight for life. She's no princess, but she's fierce, dreaming of becoming a doctor in a world that doesn't bet on girls. At 15, she enrolls in the National Preparatory School, one of few women among radical thinkers, her mind soaking up politics and art. Her style, braids, bold brows, and a defiance of gender norms, marks her as a rebel. Monkeys roam Casa Azul, her childhood pets, a quirky hint of the menagerie she'll later keep. Historians see her early years as a crucible, forging her resilience. Scholars debate whether her radicalism was born here or later, but her teenage smirk says she was always trouble. Let's zoom in on Palenque first. You're in a plaza, glyphs carved into stone, telling of queens who balanced power and ritual. The Red Queen's world is vibrant. Markets with cacao, weavers dyeing cloth red, priests chanting to Chak. Her role, whether wife or mother, tied her to Pakal's dynasty, but her tomb's grandeur says she was no shadow. Women here weren't just consorts, they brokered peace or led cities when kings fell. Now, shift to Casa Azul. Frida's a kid, limping but defiant, sketching in the courtyard while her father, a photographer, teaches her to see the world's edges. Her mother's strict, her sisters giggle, but Frida's already dreaming bigger, her polio a scar she wears like armor. Mexico's revolution simmers, and she's catching its sparks. Here's a laugh to bridge the centuries. Imagine Frida visiting Palenque. Nice tomb, but where's the tequila? She'd paint the Red Queen with flowers and thorns. Or picture your modern school days, homework, TikTok, then swap it for Frida's radical debates or a Maya queen's ritual dance. One more, you're carving glyphs or sketching monkeys, wondering if either woman knew their names would outlive empires. These aren't just lives, they're revolutions, and you're caught in their fire. You're missing your phone, but there's no signal here, just stories that burn. Let's talk about the social side of these worlds. In Palenque, the Red Queen's city thrives on hierarchy, nobles, artisans, farmers, all orbiting the divine ruler. Women like her wield influence, but it's a tightrope of tradition and blood. In Coyoacán, Frida's family is middle class, her father's lens capturing Mexico's pulse while her mother prays. Frida's school is a cauldron of ideas, where she's one of few girls, dodging sexism with a laugh and a curse. If you're a woman, both worlds test you. Palenque's queens face divine scrutiny, Frida's Mexico demands conformity she'll never give. Community's a paradox, support and chains, love and limits. One last thing before Frida's world explodes. The Red Queen's power is stone and silence, Frida's is a spark about to ignite. You're in Casa Azul, the air warm with chilies and paint, watching a girl who doesn't yet know her canvas will scream. Palenque's glyphs fade, but Frida's story's just beginning, and it's about to break your heart. It's time to follow her, and the pain's coming. You're in Coyoacan, Mexico, in the vibrant chaos of Casa Azul, where Frida Kahlo's teenage years are unfolding like a canvas of rebellion and dreams. It's the early 1920s, and Frida's a bold 15-year-old, her polio-scarred leg no match for her fiery spirit. She's at the National Preparatory School, trading barbs with radical intellectuals, her braids and unibrow a middle finger to convention. But the world's about to shatter her. At 18, in 1925, she's on a bus when it collides with a tram, a crash that turns her body into a map of pain. Her spine fractured, pelvis broken, ribs cracked, and a handrail piercing her abdomen. She's bedridden, encased in plaster, her dreams of medicine replaced by a mirror and a paintbrush. From this wreckage, Frida Kahlo the artist is born, her self-portraits a raw scream of identity, agony, and defiance. You're not just watching a life, you're witnessing a revolution on canvas. Frida's art is no gentle sketch. She paints herself, split open, bleeding, adorned with thorns or nails, blending surrealism, Mexican folk traditions, and her own unflinching truth. Her first major work, Self-Portrait in a Velvet Dress, is a nod to Renaissance poise, but soon she's diving deeper. Henry Ford Hospital, 1932, shows her miscarrying in Detroit, a bed of blood and loss. She meets Diego Rivera, Mexico's muralist giant, at 21. They marry in 1929, a turbulent bond of love, betrayal, and art. Diego's affairs sting, but Frida's no victim. She takes lovers, women and men, including Leon Trotsky, and paints through the chaos. They divorce in 1939, remarry in 1940, each affair a brushstroke in their messy masterpiece. Her style, Tehuana dresses, flowers in her hair, becomes a love letter to indigenous Mexico, a political act in a colonized world. Historians note her work fuses personal pain with cultural pride, making her a feminist and queer icon. Here's a quirky fact. At her 1953 Mexico City exhibition, Too Ill to Walk, she arrived on a stretcher, sipping tequila and stealing the show. Scholars debate whether her art's surrealism or a unique realism, but her raw honesty cuts through labels. Frida's life is pain, over 30 surgeries, chronic illness, a leg amputated in 1953, but she paints until the end. Works like The Broken Column, 1944, show her spine as a crumbling pillar, nails piercing her flesh, yet her gaze is unbreakable. She's communist, unapologetic, her Casa Azul a hub for radicals and artists. She travels to the U.S. with Diego, her art shocking galleries, but Mexico's her heart. She dies in 1954, at 47, likely from a pulmonary embolism, though some whisper overdose. Her legacy explodes, museums, films, her face on everything from t-shirts to tequila bottles. She's not just an artist, she's a symbol of resilience, disability, and defiance. Her paintings, barely 200, are worth millions, each a window into a soul that refused to break. Let's zoom in on Casa Azul for a primacy. It's 1930s, Frida's in bed, a mirror above her, paint smearing her fingers. The walls are cobalt, parrots squawk, and Diego's murals loom nearby. She's painting the two Fridas, her heart torn between indigenous and European selves, blood pooling at her feet. Her corset's a cage, her leg throbs, but her brush doesn't falter. Outside, Mexico City pulses, revolution's embers, mariachi in the streets. She's not just creating, she's reclaiming, turning scars into stories. Every stroke's a fight, against pain, patriarchy, a world that wants her small. You're not just seeing art, you're seeing a woman rewrite her fate. Here's a laugh to ease the ache. Imagine Frida on a modern art vlog. Thorns, blood. It's just Tuesday. She'd go viral in a heartbeat. Or picture your creative outlet, doodling, TikTok, then swap it for a canvas where every stroke's a stab at survival. One more, you're painting your broken spine, wondering if Diego's cheating again, but your monkey's cheering you on. This isn't a studio, it's a battlefield, and Frida's the general. You're missing your sketchbook, but there's no eraser here, just a legacy in oil and tears. Let's talk about the social side of Frida's world. Casa Azul's a magnet, artists, communists, exiles like Trotsky, all drawn to her fire. Diego's the star, but Frida's the soul, her laughter cutting through his ego. Mexico's elite sneer at her indigenous pride, but the streets love her her Tewana skirts a flag of resistance. As a woman, she's judged, too bold, too sexual, too broken, but she flips the script, her disability a badge, her bisexuality a shrug. Community's her strength, but it's also a mirror, reflecting a Mexico torn between old and new. One last thing before we close. Frida's pain is her power, her canvas a scream that echoes the Red Queen's silent tomb and Catherine's inked decrees. You're in Casa Azul, the air thick with paint and chilies, watching a woman turn wreckage into art. Her story's done, but its ripples aren't. It's time to reflect, and the night's calling. You're lying in your modern bed, the hum of a fan or the tick of a clock pulling you back from the muddy fields, gilded palaces, jungle tombs, and paint-splattered studios. We've walked a long road tonight, through the medieval grind where fleas were your roommates and pottage was a punishment, to Catherine's Russia, where a German girl turned ambition into an empire, to the Red Queen's Palenque, her cinnabar-dusted bones whispering of cosmic power, and finally to Frida's Casa Azul, where pain became art that still burns. These stories, centuries apart, share a stubborn thread, resilience. Peasants chewed through misery, Catherine outwitted a court of snakes, the Red Queen ruled a city of glyphs, and Frida painted her broken body into immortality. They didn't just survive, they carved their names into time, flaws and all. What hits you hardest? The peasant's endless slog, where every day was a bet against death. Catherine's gamble, trading ideals for a throne? The Red Queen's silent tomb, her power locked in jade and mystery? Or Frida's defiance, turning a shattered spine into a canvas of truth? They're not so different from you, you know. What would you sacrifice for a shot at greatness? Could you plow through hunger, plot through betrayal, pray through rituals, or paint through pain? Their worlds were brutal, but they found light, dim, flickering, but enough to keep going. Maybe you've got that spark too, even on your worst days. If these tales keep you up, spinning in your head like a medieval wheel or a Maya glyph, maybe hit that subscribe button. Share your thoughts in the comments. What story gripped you, or what time is it where you are? It's wild to think we're all here, connected across miles and moments, under the same stars the Red Queen saw. For now, take a breath. You're not dodging fleas or coups or bus crashes. Your bed's clean, your water's safe, and your story's still unfolding. Reflect on that resilience, that human grit that links us to ancestors who fought for every dawn. Sleep's calling, and you've earned it. Let's ease into the night together. Close your eyes, or let them soften, the world blurring at the edges. Picture the medieval village fading, its muddy streets dissolving into mist, the church bells clang softening to a distant hum. Catherine's palace dims, its chandeliers flickering out, her quill still on the desk, ink drying in the quiet. The Red Queen's tomb seals shut, jade glowing faintly in the dark, the jungle's heartbeat slowing to a whisper. Frida's Casa Azul grows silent, her paintbrush resting, the cobalt walls melting into twilight. Their struggles, their triumphs, their pain, their stories now, carried on the wind, not yours to bear. You're here, in your safe, warm space, far from fleas, from rebellions, from broken bones. Feel the weight of your blanket, light as a sigh compared to wool and worry. Hear the soft sounds around you, maybe a fan, a creak, the world breathing easy. You're not fighting for survival, you're resting, whole, ready for your own tomorrow. Let the past drift, like leaves on a stream, carrying the Red Queen's jade, Catherine's crown, Frida's thorns. They fought, they won, they lost, and you're their echo, dreaming under a gentler sky.